Hi there and welcome back to my channel. My name is Fallon and today I'm going to be sharing with you the Urban Tote Bag. This is a pattern from ImazzPatterns and it is found on Etsy. I will link it in the description of this video. If you watched yesterday's video, I walked through the quick sew version of this bag. I hope you enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun making this bag. I really love the look of it. Today I'm going to be walking through the complete version of this bag with the crossbody strap, the recessed zipper opening, and the zipper added on to the back of the bag. So they are both really great patterns. If you missed part one where I walked through the quick sew version, you could always refer back to that video so you can kind of get more detail on the differences between the two bags. But on this one, I just kind of want to jump in and show you the complete version instead of walking through all the differences again. So let's just jump right in and make the complete bag for the Urban Tote Bag pattern. Okay, so let's assemble the front of the Urban Tote Bag. This is the complete version. So first we need piece D, and along with that we're going to need the zipper pocket for this piece. It's the lining piece E. And to finish completing the front of the bag, we'll also need piece C, A, and B. So you can see I'm kind of using different textured vinyls to complete the front of the bag just to give it a little bit of a different look. For my pieces, for the vinyls, I just used a woven interfacing. The one I'm using is Woven Fuse 2, and I'm using that on the linen that I'm using as the lining of the bag as well. I didn't put Decovillite or anything like that, any heavier interfacing on these on this bag, since I am using kind of the heavier vinyl. This vinyl is from My Punk Broidery. If you're interested in that, I will put the information in the description of this video. So let's go ahead and start assembling the bag. I'm going to place the zipper right sides together with this piece D, and I'm going to put a few clips in just to hold it in place. You'll want to use your zipper foot if you have one for your machine when working with zippers. It'll make it a little bit easier. The machine I'm using, I don't have a zipper foot attachment to it, so I cut my zipper by the yard a little bit longer so that it's not in my way when I sew. You'll just have to remember to pull it back into place before you finish everything up. You don't want to accidentally cut off your zipper pull. How do I know that? Because I've done it before. So you've got to be careful when you're doing it that way. So I have the zipper in place. What I'm going to do is just base stitch across here really quick, just to hold everything in place. And then I'll place the pocket right sides together with piece D, and I will stitch across here using my seam allowance. All right, so I have the zipper in place and it is looking really good. So what I did was I sewed the zipper on using a base stitch to my panel D, and then sewed the zipper pocket lining right sides together. When I flipped it, I went ahead and top stitched here. And then I brought the lining panel up and basted it in place to the top of the zipper. So you can see, you can open the zipper and you can see how your pocket is starting to form here. So now we are going to attach piece B to the top of the zipper. And we'll sew across here using our seam allowance. We'll flip that piece up as well and top stitch it. And then we will also sew piece A and piece C together. And we'll flip that up after sewing and top stitch as well. Okay, so now that I have these panels finished, I'm going to trim off the excess zipper tape. And then I'm going to bring these two panels together. So I'm going to line up so that my seams here meet, and then I will be trimming off the excess on the top and bottom. So I'm paying most attention to this part here meeting. All right, so I have the front of the bag finished. It looks so good. So I'm going to set this to the side for now, and we are going to work on the back of the bag. So for this, we're going to need piece F, this center piece. We're going to need the two side pieces, and we'll need the top panel H. So what we're going to be doing is essentially the same thing we did with piece D for the front of the bag. We're going to lay our zipper right sides together with this center panel, and the zipper pull is to our left again. And we're going to stitch across here, just basting it in place. Then we'll take our lining piece for this pocket, which is labeled G, and we'll put it right sides together and sew it in place. Turn this all and top stitch, and we'll bring the pocket up to meet on the back to stitch it together and create that pocket. Okay, so now that our zipper is in place, we are going to trim off the excess zipper. And now we are going to sew our side panels on. So I'm going to meet these side panels up at the top of the zipper, and then I will trim down the excess after. Just keep in mind that sometimes your panel may not be measuring up, but after the end of completing the entire front or the entire back, you want to trim your panel to be what the measurements are in the pattern. You know, we might have different seam allowances that we can do with the zipper, different size zippers, so sometimes this will measure differently. Just remember, you can always trim down at the end of constructing all of your front or back. So I'm going to fold this panel to line up with the top of the zipper, put a few clips in, and sew across using the seam allowance. Then I will press it open and top stitch, and I will do the same with the other side. So I'll sew down the side, flip it open, top stitch, and then I'll place this top panel on, sew across using the seam allowance, press up and top stitch, and then I will trim everything down to match my front panel. Okay, so now the back of the bag is finished and trimmed down to match the size of the front of the bag. So we are going to attach the piece I, the bottom panel of the bag now. So I'm going to line it up here, add some clips. And I'll just sew using my seam allowance indicated in the pattern across here, and after it's sewn, I'll attach it to the bottom of the other panel and sew across this side as well. After getting that sewn, I'm going to bring the sides of the bag together and sew along the sides, each side leaving the top open, and then I will be boxing the bottom of the bag. Okay, so we have the sides sewn, and then we needed to box the bottom of the bag. So I have one side done, and what we're going to do is kind of fold all this to the side so that this corner can lay flat. Line it up as nice as you can, and we'll measure across for where to sew. So for me, it lines up where the stitches are. So I'm just going to put clips to hold this in place. And I'm going to sew across where the stitches are. Alright, so now that I've sewn across the stitches from before, I'm going to trim off the corner about 1/2 of an inch from the stitches. So now we have our boxed bottom of the bag. So I'm going to turn the bag right side out. And we're going to do some of the finishing touches on the exterior of the bag before we move on to the lining of the bag. All right, so here's the back of the bag and the front of the bag. I really think it looks so cute. So now what we need to do, if you're using the crossbody strap on this bag, we need to get our D-ring tabs made for that. And then if you want the handle on the bag, we need to make the handles as well. So you can see I have one handle made. So to do that, I marked the center of the handle and I'm going to put some double-sided tape down the center. Okay. And then while you're doing that, you can go ahead and put double-sided tape down the center of both of the tabs. And if you're making the crossbody strap, which you would be making if you have the D-ring tabs, you can do the same thing as with the handle, mark down the center, put the tape on. You can see I have my crossbody strap already made because it is the same steps as making the handle. So if I show you how to make this, make the handle and the crossbody strap the same way. So you take the sides, fold them in along the double-sided tape, right along where that marked line is. Do the same on the other side, bring it to the center. The double-sided tape will help hold that in place. And then just fold it closed. I'm going to put clips through here. You could put some double-sided tape if you really want it held together really well. I'm just going to add a few clips. And then we're going to sew about 1/8 of an inch along each side, so it'll end up looking like the handle here. Now with the D-ring tabs, I'm going to take off the backing on the double-sided tape. We're just going to fold it into that line. So that's it. We're not going to fold it twice. We're just going to fold it into that line and then sew 1/8 of an inch along each side of this. So we'll sew 1/8 of an inch along each side there, 1/8 of an inch along each side here. If you're doing the crossbody strap, go ahead and prep it just like the handle and finish the entire strap. All right, so now that my straps are all finished, I'm going to put the D-rings on the D-ring tabs. All right, so I'm gonna sew as close as I can to the D-ring on both of these just to secure it in place as much as I can. All right, so we have the D-ring tabs finished, And now we're going to go ahead, since we have the strap, the crossbody strap prep, we're going to go ahead and attach the hardware for it just so that it can be finished as well. So I'm going to put the end of the strap through the swivel hook. It's going to be a little tight for me because I have vinyl here. All right, so I have that through my slider, and I'm going to put a few stitches across here to secure this in place. All right, so the swivel is secured. So we're going to take the other end of the strap and we're going to attach one of the swivel hooks. So I'm going to put the raw edge of the strap up and I'm going to attach the swivel with the hook facing towards me so that once we go back through the swivel here, the slider will be kind of hiding the raw edge of the strap within the two straps here. See how that works? It's kind of hidden in there. So now we'll go back through the other side of the slider. Now we have this one end here with nothing on it where we're going to attach the other slider. So I'm going to have the nice end of the slider up and the swivel hook facing me. Push it on, fold down, and then we're going to put some stitches through here to secure it in place. All right, so now the adjustable crossbody strap is complete. So you can just adjust it here at the slider as needed. Mine with the vinyl is a little stiff, but if you did yours with fabric, you can easily adjust it. There we go. So I'm going to set this to the side. And now we'll attach the D-rings and the handles onto the bag. Okay, so to attach the D-rings and the handles, I put markings on my bag for the handles per the pattern. And what I'm going to do is attach the handle just outside of those marked lines. So when I go over to the sewing machine, I'll have this lined up and I'll stitch right across here and right across here. And I'm going to be making sure that when I do that, my handle isn't twisted in any way. And I'll do that on both sides of the bag. Now for the D-rings, I'm going to line them right up at the seam on the side of the bag, right in the middle, and I'll stitch along there as well a few times just to secure it in place. So one will go on each side. All right, so I have the D-ring tabs tacked in place and the handles tacked in place. So now it is time to move on and start on the lining of the bag. Okay, so first up, for creating the lining of the bag, we need to get the recessed zipper all put together. So I have never actually made a recessed zipper panel the way it's done in this pattern, but oh my goodness, it was so much easier. So I went ahead and put one side on just to see and make sure how it was done. To prep the zipper, I curved the edges over and put a few stitches at the end. And I'm actually going to use a zipper end stop instead of the zipper tab in the pattern. It's just a lot easier, but the instructions are very clear on creating the zipper tab for the end here. So if you see on my zipper, recessed zipper, the zipper here is exposed. It's not tucked inside like it is in some patterns I've done. However, you're never going to see this, and it looks very clean on the back here. I might go ahead and like burn the edges here just to make sure it doesn't come unraveled, or add some fray check here. But otherwise, it is very clean on the end here. So to start, I'm going to add some double-sided tape to the end. Of each side of the short sides. And then I'm going to add some double-sided tape to one side of the long side just to hold it closed. So for the short ends, we're going to fold it in about 1/2 inch. All right, so about 1/2 inch, we're going to fold this side in. And then the same with the other side. And then we're going to fold it in half. Then I'm going to take my 1/4 inch double-sided tape and put it right along the edge of the zipper. Okay, and then raw edge facing out, I'm going to put this right along the edge of the zipper tape, leaving just a little bit of the zipper exposed. I'm going to try to get it as straight as possible so that it looks nice and even. Right, it looks pretty even to me. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew a box around here, and then I'm going to add fray check to the zipper end over here, and I'm going to put the zipper end on the end as well. All right, so now the next step for the lining is to grab these slip pockets. We're going to place them right sides together. And we're going to sew all the way around them, leaving an opening for turning later. So I'm going to start at one marked line, back stitch really well, go all the way around to the end, back stitch really well, so that when I turn, those threads don't come undone. All right, so now I'm going to trim the corners, making sure not to snip off any threads. This is just going to help make those corners a little bit cleaner when we turn. So I'm going to turn this panel. And I'm going to push out the corners the best I can with my fingers, but I have a turning tool here, and I'm going to use my iron to press everything nice and flat as well. All right, the side with the opening, I'm going to top stitch across it to close that opening and also for some detail. All right, so the slip pocket is finished. It's stitched across the top, and now we're going to figure out the placement on the lower lining. So I'm going to mark where I want one of my slip pockets. So I want this piece to have 2 pockets. It's not going to be centered, but we do need to find the center of not only the pocket, but the lining as well. All right, so now I'm just going to see how far down I need to mark. This. Okay, and then I'm going to put a few pins in to hold this in place for sewing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch down the side, along the bottom, up one side of this marked line, down the other, along the side, and up. And that will hold my slip pocket in place, creating 2 pockets. And then this is a heat sensitive pin. It's a friction pin, so I can just iron that line off afterward. All right, so now I'm going to baste the zipper in place. I marked the center of the lining and the center of the zipper. And so I'm going to baste this in place here. And I'm going to baste it in place onto both sides of this panel. So this side is going to turn and go on the other side once this is sewn in place. All right, so now I'm going to take the lining top, the upper lining, put one on one side, stitch across, then press it up and top stitch, and I'm going to do that to both of these upper lining pieces. All right, so here is the recessed zipper. Now what we're going to do is bring the sides together and sew along the sides and the bottom. I'm going to make sure the zipper is tucked inside. We don't want to sew the zipper into the lining. And we're going to leave a bit of an opening along the side. So I'm going to mark that just like I did before on the slip pocket. And this is where I'm going to start and stop sewing over here so that we have somewhere to turn this bag once we have completed it. All right, so now that the sides and the bottom is sewn, I'm going to box the corners by cutting out a square marked per the pattern. Right. I am going to trim my seam allowance here just a little. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring these boxed corners together and just quickly sew along that edge. I am going to press my seams to the side and kind of bring them together so they're nested nicely. So I'm going to sew right along there on each side. You can see I'm turning my seam down the bottom of the bag in the same direction on both sides. All right, now that the lining is ready, I'm going to put the bag inside, and I want my zipper to be closed on the same side that my front zipper is closed on. So I'm going to make sure that I put the front of the bag into the lining so that all of that lines up. Make sure to push my handles inside as well as the D-rings and line everything up. So I'm going to put clips along the sides. Make sure my handle's in on the side. Line up the sides perfectly, and then I'm just going to work around the rest of the bag, putting clips in, and then I'm going to go to the sewing machine and sew along the edge here. Then we'll turn the bag right side out, push the lining in and top stitch, attach the crossbody strap, and we'll be finished with this bag. It is looking so cute. I'm excited to see it all finished. All right, so I've stitched across the top, so let's turn the bag. I left one side open, so I'm going to pull the bag through there. All right, so here is the finished complete bag. So what are the major differences between this bag and the quick sew? Well, on the quick sew, you just have the front pocket and you have a magnetic snap here if you choose instead of the recessed zipper, but you still have that slip pocket on the inside. So on this bag, you have a recessed zipper on top, so a little more secure inside. You also have a back zipper pocket and you have a crossbody strap. I think it's just so wonderful how you could mix and match on this bag. You could do all of this, and instead of doing the recessed zipper, if you don't want to do that, you could do a magnetic snap instead. So with all of that information from the two patterns, you could mix and match all these components together and make the bag perfectly how you would want it. I really, really like this pattern. I think it is a great beginner pattern, and I hope this helps you see the differences between the two and decide how you would want to make your bag to make it perfect for you. Let me know in the comments what you think of this bag and the quick sew. I'd love to hear from you, and be sure to check out the description of this video to get links to where I purchased the vinyl, where you can purchase this pattern if you would like it, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.